What is going on, Niners faithful? It is your boy Anthony Perry back with another edition of the Red and Gold Standard Podcast. Today, I am joined by Cam Inman, none other than 95.7 The Game's Niners insider. Cam, how you doing?
Doing really well, thanks. How you doing?
Good. I'm like I told you, I'm really honored to have you on. This is something short and sweet, but again, I'm really excited. So let's get right into it, Cam. How's the beat writing life? Obviously, COVID-19 has hit sports in all facets. How's it been from your side?
Fortunately, we're fine health-wise, but it's a bummer that camp started and we're just kind of restricted to the Zoom calls, which we're becoming so used to this video interaction, which is great. But it's the time of year where we can't wait to get on the field to see for our eyes. I personally despise the off season. I hate writing about speculation, writing stories about what somebody said about somebody else. I like to use my own eyes, my ears, and report that way. And when all we can do is everybody's watching the same Zoom interviews, you don't really get a great, authentic feel of how things are because everybody's very politically correct, says a lot of niceties, which is, obviously there's a lot of nice things to say about the 49ers right now, but I want to get out there, and we'll get out there eventually in the next week or two to be able to see some of these things. We're hearing some positives, what's going out there with comebacks, and that's what you want to hear at the start of training camp rather than, for the 49ers' sake. So far, it's been pretty positive in terms of there haven't been a lot of guys tested positive for COVID-19, or we don't even know if they're tested positive. It's just they go on the list because they could be associated with somebody infected. So there's only been 2 and they're both cleared off of that. And then, whether guys opt out or not, and that's coming up in the next couple of days where we find out if more go on that. But, with a team that's coming off a Super Bowl with revenge and on their mind, there's a lot of fuel to the fire that's going right now. And it was a really good team last year, just for all the personalities in there and the talent, and they've upgraded some spots, and they've got issues to make sure that they've done okay filling other spots.
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the biggest one of the things regarding the team's success is being able to just kind of keep filling, have a lot of depth. And going into this season also, obviously we saw the team sign Jordan Reed, and also bring on Deion Jordan, which I'll get into later. But talking about COVID-19 leads me into this next question perfectly. So aside from this, we see the NBA has been able to handle COVID-19 really well. They have all the guys in the bubble. Everyone's staying safe. Outside of, I'm sure you heard about Lou Williams going out to the Miami club and getting the wings, right? that I think that was just a fluke. But overall, though, the NBA has done a really good job at ensuring their players stay healthy. They stay inside of their bubble. Obviously, with football, that is not the case. You have 11 guys on the field constantly contacting and hitting each other, and that just includes training camp as well. And yeah, they're kind of limiting their exposure with no preseason games. But Cam, going into this season, do you think that the NFL can do anything like that to help limit the players' overall exposure?
It's there's no team sport like football where you got to really rely on the guy next to you. And that's going to go so much off the field this year. And there's so many guys that, it's a very young team. So you worried about whether guys want to go out on the town or not. Richard Sherman's saying that there's not much to do in the South Bay, but he wasn't here a few years ago when a lot of guys were getting arrested for doing stupid stuff or getting put in bad situations, right? So that element always exists. I worry the fact that even though times are okay now, they haven't started hitting each other yet. We're a couple of weeks away from really finding out in all football circles across the land whether guys are going to be easily transmitting this virus if they don't know they have it. And that's why there's so much testing every day, and that's very important and that's great. But there's also a lot of mystery about how this affects guys. What are going to be the long-term effects? It's a very polarizing topic, and especially on a team with Super Bowl ambitions. I think they're going to have to take it a lot more seriously, knowing, I loved what Mike Tomlin of the Steelers said the other day, saying one fail, all fail, right? So not one guy can slip up. And just talking to a couple of the 49ers this week as they get into camp, they have preached that accountability among themselves, saying, I've got a family that I'm isolating myself from, and I'm doing that for the sake of this team. And we can't have one guy going around messing it up for the rest of us that are sacrificing so much.
Yeah, I saw what you said on Twitter the other day about Raheem Mostert saying that he had a really tough discussion with his wife. He just had a kid. He has another one coming.
Yeah.
And obviously, when it comes to COVID-19, he wants to keep himself safe, but he really wants to keep his family safe. So something like this definitely isn't easy for not just him, but all the players as well.
Oh yeah, and I went through the roster trying to see how many guys have families or kids that would be impacted by this, and there's not too many. That's why it's a young team. They're not all swinging bachelors, but there's guys that have kids, and they're obviously, if you become a father, that's the top priority in your life. And so anytime anybody opts out for family reasons, people really have to understand that and have to sympathize for them. These guys want to play football. It's not that they're getting out of here and they'll make their money next year. It's NFL is so not for long, right? So when it's available, you try to do it. And if you're getting out, it's for good reason.
Yeah, that's one thing that I thought the NFL actually did pretty well covering their players is like Travis Benjamin, for example, who opted out, who gets $150,000 stipend.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't what he was under contract with to begin with, but at least he gets a portion of that money to go into his future to where he can have some kind of security. And yeah, I'm not saying the millionaires aren't bad at saving their money, but these guys do care about their money and they really like having, some kind of income. But Cam, speaking about money, there's obviously the big story this entire offseason has been regarding signing George Kittle. Everyone wants the extension. We saw the big hashtag going on saying sign George Kittle, re-sign George Kittle, things of that nature. Where do you feel the team stands with that?
Well, Kyle Shanahan said it's not a concern. So, and Kyle's been very transparent in his 3.5 years here. So I'm willing to take him at his word, whereas he's not the salary cap guru that's got to break down this historic contract for a tight end, right? But if he's encouraged by it and has talked with George, that to me tells me that George Kittle will be around and he's going to be around a long time. And that's the way it should be. I mean, there's no acrimony on either side. Now, you wonder though, after they let DeForest Buckner leave, and that was their last big contract negotiation, that didn't work, right? They said, we can't afford you. You want top end money. It's at a position where we're not willing to do that. And so they traded him off to the Colts and drafted Javon Kinlaw. I understand that rationale. That works. You can't do that with George Kittle. There is not another George Kittle out there for this type of offense. Jordan Reed is a very good receiver, but he comes with a lot of question marks, health concerns. Did not play last year, has 7 or 8 concussions in his career. So very concerning there. And George is, he's everything that embodies what they want the 49er to be, a homegrown talent that's worked really hard, has taken ownership of that locker room as a 2-time captain, all pro, also, pro bowler, and he's a record setting guy. And so you just have to come up with a number that's not going to work so much against you in the future, but reward him for what he's worth. And he's only 3 years in. And when he started his rookie year, there were injury questions about his durability. And he's shown the last couple of years he's willing to play through a lot of pain. And that's, for his team. And it's also his livelihood to make this money.
I definitely feel like the team and Kittle may not be too far apart, although they may not be close either. But when you have someone like Kittle, like you said, who embodies the spirit of what it means to be a football player, to be a 49er, and like you said, to be a team captain, it reflects towards the rest of the team too, because you have other guys on the team who may already be somewhat skeptical about just say COVID-19 or just wanting to go into the season. And when you have someone like Kittle who can be a leader, who can step up, who can guide that locker room to success and just say, hey, look, I'm here for you guys. I want to play for this team. It isn't about me. It's about the team. Do you think that kind of leadership, at least out of Kittle, you really just can't find much anywhere else?
Well, I think it's kind of the word leadership is a little bit overstated because it comes in different forms. George is a fiery guy that likes to have fun, and that comes across well. Garoppolo is not a guy is going to go out there and be your vocal leader in terms of at least publicly, right? On the practice field, maybe he'll kind of put guys in line, and he does that. He's not a guy that's going to win you over at the microphone, right? And George can do both. But then there's other guys that strictly do it with their play. And you're seeing that out of a team that's doing really well. That's what you want out of your leaders. And that's what, that's what these guys get paid to do. It's not that the coach has to do all of it, but there's usually enough leaders on the team to help guide the younger guys. And George is still a young guy.
Yeah, he's what, 25, 26 years old, and he's still basically a kid. He's a kid on the field and he's a kid off the field. And I think teams value that heavily because you can see a guy who can have a lot of fun and be a total goofball, but when he steps on the field, he's the best at his position and he's the best at the game. And you can't compete with that. You really can't. Right. So you brought up Jordan Reed earlier, and obviously they just signed Dion Jordan also. Jordan Reed's deal, I heard, was heavily incentive-laden, so it'll probably be primarily based on how he plays throughout the season. And I would imagine, assuming both these guys make the team, including Dion Jordan, his deal is the same also. Do you think that with those contracts, which are likely one-year deals, do you think that could affect George Kittle's extension in any way if they can get it done?
No, I don't. And it's every training camp, there's usually you bring in the low-risk, decent reward type of veterans that are trying to resurrect their career or squeeze a little bit left out of it. And I think what it is it's especially important this season to have that depth amid COVID concerns. If maybe your starters get wiped out, you better have veteran depth behind them, guys that know what they're doing. Not that Ross Dwelley didn't know what he was doing last year, because he came in and filled in for Kittle, filled in for Juszczyk, had flashed in some moments. But you also want a vet that's kind of been there and will be ready for that. And versatility is also going to be very key. There's a lot to go into a season, and it's going to be a fascinating year. And hopefully there is a year to talk about, or a season to talk about.
Yeah, you brought it up at the beginning of this whole video, is that these guys haven't really contacted each other much at all. So yet is to be determined how COVID-19 will affect these guys once there is real contact. And that's going to lead into this coming question. Travis Benjamin is the first Niner to opt out. And this is kind of just a yes or no, but do you feel that with the deadline being tomorrow too, I think it's tomorrow at 1 p.m. our time, tomorrow's the deadline for players to opt out. Do you feel that any players may possibly opt out, or do you think everyone's pretty committed at this point?
I don't know, because like you said, there could be guys that we don't know about that are wrestling with it. Talking with Raheem Mostert today, he said he's not opting out. To me, that was a big question mark, because we know his family concerns and his wife's pregnant right now. He opted out of a autograph show in March that kind of led us to understand that, these athletes understand that family is important. He told us today that Mark Nazacha was wrestling with it because he also has a young son. So maybe there is a guy that's kind of a roster bubble guy, but that, and people go, okay, well, it's football. You learn to adjust, next man up mentality. But if it's somebody like George Kittle that uses his contract situation as leverage, that's kind of, to me, the NFL's a business, and that would be an ultimate business move to say, it's not worth it. I'll sit out this year and get paid next year, right? If you're not going to pay me. But Kyle Shanahan said, don't be concerned about Kittle, right? So that, to me, cancels that part out. Jimmy Garoppolo is another, that's 49ers. You always look at the quarterback, and he's committed, right? I mean, they could have brought in Tom Brady, but they were committed to Jimmy Garoppolo too. So, yes, there's always the possibility a guy opts out. What kind of is strange to me is that the NFL has a deadline for this. Baseball doesn't. If guys if you're not comfortable in anything in life, I think you should be able to get out. Okay. Now, what would that do if you're on a last place team in October? Then yes, you may have all these guys saying, no way, not worth it, I'm out of here. Well, but that's also that's true. All right. And there should be some kind of, I don't know. To me, it's just kind of odd that they're forcing these guys' hand right now. A month, it'll be 6 weeks before the season, and there's still so much to learn about what's going to happen in football and close contact and the virus.
Exactly. And here I was earlier praising that the NFL was able to give these guys some money if they decide to opt out. But the fact that they aren't given too much time to opt out, I believe they pushed the opt-out time up. So they had to make a decision faster than what the original timeline was for them. And that doesn't make it easy on these guys at all, who want to make money and who are under contract, but who, like you said, also have families, they have kids. And sometimes you have to put your family first over the sport. And yeah, it sucks to leave your team. But, if I had kids or whatever it may be, I don't think I'd want to leave them behind also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mostert put it in, he put it in a really kind of cut and dry way, saying, I'm the breadwinner for my family. I have to go make my money. And it's like, yes, people sacrifice that a lot, and he's a millionaire, and he still has that train of thought. Whereas some people say, I got my million, I'm out. I got my family to worry about. The beauty of it is the 49ers, from the ownership to the coach to the general manager, are very player supportive in individual rights. And that goes back to Colin Kaepernick's, taking the knee. They believe that the player has a lot of, I don't know, I want to say power, but they want to be there for the player and support him through whatever decision. And I think that's very encouraging. At least that's how they portray themselves in public. Maybe it wasn't always that case where they would say, no, it's our way or the highway. But I think it's a lot. Everybody has to have a certain amount of understanding, especially during what a wild 2020 year it's been so far.
It has definitely been a crazy 2020, that's for sure. So, Cam, I want to close out with a few quick questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So, I know it's been hard for you to report on the team. Obviously, you have to listen in on a lot of Zoom conferences and things like that. But with the way the offseason's going, what's the vibe you've gotten around the team? It seems like a lot of these guys are remaining positive and keeping their hopes up that they'll make it back to the playoffs.
Oh, not just to the playoffs, that they're going to go back to the Super Bowl and win it. And that's the mentality you have to have when you report for training camp. But judging from what they've said, and I got a story coming out tomorrow on it, is just there is a lot of optimism, obviously, about getting back to the Super Bowl. You have kept a lot of pieces intact. There's a lot of consistency in place. You have some new parts that are very exciting, and you have some players making comebacks that are very encouraging so far. And every training camp, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be some kind of dismay, and you have to adjust to it. Right now, every team in the league is expecting that, and especially with COVID-19 adjustments. And that is something that the 49ers have braced themselves for. They're going through all the health protocol, and they're in a county that's very stringent on health. Santa Clara County, since day one, has had some very strict guidelines for good reason, because it was a flashpoint for a lot of this coronavirus. So the 49ers know the ramifications of it, and all the players do as well. And they temper that with knowing that they have to be more accountable for each other. I think that's a good thing.
Accountability definitely matters in this day and age when everyone needs to be vocal and be communicable about how they're feeling and what's going on. So like you said, COVID-19 will clearly and most likely affect the roster at some point if these guys can't necessarily stay healthy. But with this offseason, and obviously there's no preseason games to begin with, who's the one UDFA you have your eye on?
In any other year, I'd know them by heart, and I probably would have rated them by they brought in 10. I think they're down to 8 or 7 or something like that. Give me the nose tackle out of Nebraska. Is it Darian Daniels? I think something like
that. Yeah.
I would keep my eye out for him because, somebody like Kevin Givens he made the practice squad last year before he got promoted, and he was an undrafted interior defensive tackle. And without DeForest Buckner there, that's a pretty big hole. And I think that you might want to keep a couple guys there, especially among COVID, because that seems to be a very at-risk position. So I'm looking at him. How's that?
I love it. And Cam, this is the last question because you've given me so much time. This is for the locals who listen within the East Bay, especially in where we live. So when you get on the 95.7 The Game, and I feel like when I listen, you have to mentally prepare to listen to what Joe Lowe and Dibbs or Steining, Guru and Kolsky and Damon and all those guys are going to say. When you're getting on the radio, who's the one guy you can't wait to hear a question from?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't prep. I don't want to know what they're talking about. Here's the thing, like anytime you do this, you have to know what you're talking about. So you have to be ready for any kind of question. And I actually prefer when it's not even questions, that it's something oddball and corny that may not have anything to do with the 49ers, but something about life and sharing that. So, I mean, any of them, it's the thing to remember is it's sports, it's entertainment. So have fun with it and don't get all bogged down. There's too much seriousness right now in our lives. So any kind of levity and humor that you can inflict with information and analysis, I think that works.
All right, guys, that wraps it up with Cam Inman. Cam, thank you so much for your time. This was an excellent interview. It was an honor to have you, and I can't wait to have you on again at some point.
All right, yeah, thanks. Follow me on Twitter and follow me on my Instagram at 49ers.cam. So thanks much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See ya.